All right, it is carnival season in the kitchen today because we're gonna make some king cake beignets. First things first, we're gonna take some lukewarm water. Getting the water out of the tap is perfectly fine. Just allow it to heat up just so you can get it to 110 degrees. Then we're gonna take some active dry yeast and we're gonna pour that into our warm water. You need warm water for the yeast to activate, all right? And then we're gonna take some sugar. We're gonna add the sugar to our mixture. The sugar is going to send the yeast on a psychedelic high so that the yeast can begin to activate, all right? Then we're gonna take some eggs and slightly beat them. We're gonna go ahead on and throw some salt in there. Get the salt on in there. And then we're gonna go ahead on and add some evaporated milk. I just find evaporated milk has a better depth of flavor than using regular whole milk, okay? So while we have our yeast mixture sitting to the side for about 10 minutes just so it could come to bubble up, we got our egg mixture ready. Now let's continue to prep up. What we have here is about 8 cups of unbleached flour. And then we're gonna go ahead on and add our cinnamon. It is not a king cake unless it has a cinnamon flavor. That's how you know it's a true king cake. You gotta have some cinnamon to that thing, all right? Now it's been 10 minutes and we got our yeast. It got some bubbles. If this was for a yeast dough or something, we want the yeast to double in size, but we don't need it to do that much for these beignets, all right? So we're gonna take our egg mixture and we're gonna go ahead on and pour that into our yeast mixture and mix those two up. All right, now let's go ahead on and pour that into our mixing bowl. And then we're gonna go ahead on and add 4 cups of flour to our egg mixture. All right, I just hope that you have a stand mixer at your house, because if you have to do this by hand, you're gonna have some pretty strong fingers, hands, wrists, and forearms after you finish mixing this together. I wouldn't advise you use a hand mixer with the dough hooks because it cannot handle this much of the dough. You will definitely probably need to cut this recipe in half if you're going to use a home hand mixer. Then you want to go ahead on and put your dough hook attachment to your stand mixer, and then you just want to let that go ahead on and mix for about 30 seconds. Then we're going to go ahead on and add our shortening to the dough. I like to use Crisco shortening. I just find it's just the best. And I also like to just scoop it with a spoon so that it can incorporate better instead of throwing one big old lump in there, all right? So we let that mix for about 30 seconds, and now here comes the real tedious fun, all right? We're gonna go ahead on and add our flour little by little. You can do a half a cup, you can do a whole cup. All you wanna do is just make sure that you add it a little by little just so it can begin to incorporate into your dough mixture. And it's very important to make sure when you using your dough attachment that you don't go no higher than 2. Anything over that, you'll end up incorporating too much air into your dough, and then you'll end up with too much gluten development. All right, you want to let this dough come together nice and slow, and just knock off any flour that may have got to the top of your attachments. All right, so you want to let this mix for about 8 minutes. You may notice that the machine is working hard, so you want to stop it and scrape down your dough so that it can get incorporated. And as you can see, we have a beautiful elasticity in our dough. It should be nice and slightly sticky, and that lets you know that this beignet dough is perfect, all right? So after you finish fighting with your dough to get it off of your dough hook, you're gonna go ahead on, take it out of the stand mixer, and then you're gonna, if I can figure it out, there you go, new tool. So once you take it out the stand mixer, then you just want to scrape down to make sure that everything is incorporated, all the flour is incorporated. Then you want to just go ahead on and cover it and pop it into the fridge overnight, all right? If you don't want to do this, just cover it and place it somewhere in a warm spot for 2 hours, all right? Now that that dough is resting, let's make our glaze, all right? We're going to take some powdered sugar and we're going to add some more evaporated milk to that. If you like a thicker icing or glaze, just use half of this evaporated milk. Then we throw in a little bit of salt and some pure vanilla extract. Don't be cheap using that imitation stuff. Give that a good old whisk it on up, and then you have a beautiful glaze, all right? Now let's go ahead on and make our own sugar, okay? You can go ahead on and buy the color sprinkles if you want to. In this kitchen, we like to have some fun. So this is my first time using the plant-based food coloring. So at first I had to figure it out, and I did it with just one. So I tried it with 6 drops of yellow dye, and it really didn't give me the color I was looking for. So I figured out adding 6 more, and it gave me the beautiful golden yellow that I was looking for. All right. And then we're gonna go ahead on and do the exact same thing with our green. Now that I'm a student and a master of this, since I've done it once before, we're gonna go ahead on and add 12 drops of the green plant-based dye. And we're just gonna go ahead on and mix that in with our fork, and you see we have a beautiful green, all right? See that? That's some good stuff. I don't even know what they make regular dye out of. I don't know where they get those colors from, but this is a whole lot healthier and safer for your body, okay? Costs a little bit more, but hey, you better spend it on your health, okay? So to make purple, we all learned this in kindergarten. Red and blue makes what class? Purple. That's right. So we're gonna do equal parts of red and blue to get us our beautiful purple color. We'll mix that up in a bowl, and then we'll add that dye mixture into our sugars, and then we have our beautiful purple, green, and yellow sugar. All right, look at how beautiful those are. So now that it's the next day, we're gonna go ahead on and take our dough out. And as you can see, our dough is really holding on because it has a beautiful, look at that. The gluten has formed well, it's nice and elastic. That's a great dough. This is exactly what you want. So now you can take out your frustration and go ahead on and punch the dough. Punch the dough down to knock out any air bubbles that may be in there. And then you want to dust your board and dust your hands slightly because you have to grab this dough out. If you want to, you can do some cooking spray. Just spray some cooking spray on your hand just so you can scrape out this dough and get it out of the bowl. All right. Now, if you didn't have a stand mixer and you mixed it by hand, this is what you're going to end up doing. You're going to end up getting a dough, and you're just going to have to knead it a couple of 10s or 20s or 30s or 40s times, okay? But since we let the stand mixer do all the work, we ain't got to worry about all that, all right? So we're going to take our dough, and then we're going to go ahead on and cut it in half. I decided to use my fancy pizza cutter. You can definitely use a knife to go ahead on and just slice it down and make your life easier. Put the other piece of dough to the side so it's easy to work with, and then we're going to go ahead on and flour our dough some more. Get our rolling pin and flour that too. We don't want nothing to stick. And then you just want to begin to roll out your dough. I like to go back, forward, to the side, to the windows, to the wall. All right. I ain't gonna finish singing the rest of the Lil Jon song. So you just want to go ahead on and roll out your dough. My goal was to roll out this dough about the size of this cutting board. This is about a 2-foot 2x3 cutting board, all right? And you know that you got a really good dough and the gluten has really formed. When you start to roll the dough out, you'll notice that it starts to try to squeeze back in towards you, okay? So if you end up like me and you notice your dough starting to stick, just lift up your dough and throw a little bit of flour underneath there for dusting. Readjust your dough so it gets nice and pretty, and then just begin to roll it out again, all right? If you did this dough right, as you roll it out, you will notice that it starts to recede back into you, okay? That's a good thing. You don't let the dough win, you roll it out until it stops fighting you, all right? So now that I hit about my goal, about getting this about the size of the cutting board, now I'm just gonna trim it up just to make sure that it's a nice even cut, all right? Now all these extra scraps, any scraps, just go ahead on and throw it into your other dough because you're gonna do that. Now you wanna go ahead on and start to roll out and cut out your beignets. So you wanna cut some vertical strips, maybe about 2 inches wide. You can go 2 to 3 inches wide. It's your beignets, do what you wanna do. Do what you wanna do. However big, however small you wanna do, these are your beignets, all right? Then we're gonna cut some vertical lines. Now it's time to cut some horizontal lines, all right? It doesn't matter if you cut crooked. It's supposed to be rustic, okay? You know, at Cafe Du Monde, they got a machine to do all this work for them. They don't roll out the dough. They don't cut the dough, all right? And you see that? A beautiful squared beignet, all right? Now, once our oil gets to 360 degrees, it is time for frying. And all you want to do is go ahead on and gingerly drop in your dough, all right? And you want to let it cook for about 2 to 4 minutes on each side, all right? And I want you to really see this because once your dough starts to fry up, you will notice that the beignets begin to get this nice, gorgeous air pocket, and it's just gonna go ahead on and plump up, all right? And that's another good sign for you because That's what you want in your beignet. You want that little air pocket in there because this is going to make it nice, airy, and a great tender bite. If your beignet don't do this, start all over from scratch. Trust me, it is worth it. All right. So when you notice your beignet is starting to rise and puff up like that, you can press them down underneath it so it's submerged all the way in the oil, and then it'll cook evenly. Okay. At Cafe Du Monde, what they have is this big old crate that they press down on top of the beignet so they stay submerged underneath the oil. We don't have that luxury at home, all right? So you just gotta dunk them underneath them. And after a few minutes, you wanna take out your beignets once they're nice and golden brown and delicious, all right? See, that one needed to be cooked just a little bit more, so I dunked them, all right? Then you just take your beignets out, let it drain on a wire rack, or if you don't have a wire rack, just let it drain on a baking sheet with some paper towels to absorb all that oil, all right? Now, while you're going through your batches, just pop it in a 200-degree oven so they can stay warm until you finish frying all your beignets. Then what you want to do is you want to dunk your beignets into your glaze, and then you just want to let that just sit on the cooling rack, all right? Like I said, I don't want these to be extra thick. I like a nice little glaze on it. That look good, all right? And you want to do this while this is warm. You want to add your colored sugars to it so it would stick, all right? If you let that icing start to harden, it won't stick. But dipping it and then going immediately to your colored sugars is like acting as a glue to it, all right? Now, you can do this in any design you want. You can do green, purple, yellow. You can do yellow, purple, green. It doesn't really matter. Have fun. Grab your hands. The only rule is do not be light-handed with this. Go ahead on and let it rain. Let it rain the carnival Mardi Gras colors on top of that king cake beignet. Look at that. Nice and beautiful, all right? So that is how easy it is to make these beautiful king cake beignets. The recipe is down below. Look at that. So after you finish that, just go ahead on and transfer them to a platter and then watch them magically disappear. All right. I know I could eat about 5 of these by myself. All right. Now, let me show you a great sign of a great beignet. After you take a bite into it, you should have this beautiful air pocket. Do you see that air pocket? That's what you want. That's exactly why when you start to fry these beignets, you should see that little bubble form. Right. Now, let's do something different, all right? I had the great idea while I was doing this. Traditional king cakes are made from braided dough, so I rolled down my dough and cut them into strips, and then I begin to braid my dough. Now, I've never braided nothing a day in my life, so you're about to witness this happen. What I did was I took the two edges, and then I crisscrossed them over the middle, and then you kind of take the middle and toss it to the right or to the left, and then you go ahead on and do this braid technique. I really had no idea what I was doing. I had to phone a friend and asked her, how do you braid hair? And she told me, and then I figured it out, all right? So just go ahead on and braid it. All I know is the middle, cross over, and then you twist it, and you do this little weird thing. I don't know, I figured it out, okay? The more I did it, the more improved my braids look. Now, since these are extra long pieces of braided dough, what I did was at the end of it, after I finished braiding it and then tucking it, what I did was just cut it in half, okay? So I think the next time I do this, I'll be a professional braider, all right? Ta-da! Look at all them braids, all right? Same system as before. We're gonna go ahead on, get our oil up to 360 degrees, and then we're gonna fry these for about 3 minutes on each side, all right? Till they're nice and golden brown, okay? Look at how beautiful that is, all right? So you'll start to notice once they fried and they're ready to turn, you'll notice the browning of the dough on the outside, okay? Look at how gorgeous that is. Look at how nice that is, all right? King cake beignet with a twist, you know what I'm saying? So get you something that can support the braid, because when I tried to pull it out with a tongue, it definitely was starting to break. So I had to get something a little bit more sturdy, like my spider, to pull it out. You know, same rules as before. Go ahead on and dip it into the icing. You don't want to be shy. You want to make sure you get all in them crevices. All right, look at that. Look at how gorgeous that is. Be patient and don't eat it right then and there, all right? Be patient and don't eat it right then and there. I know it's gonna be hard, but you gotta control yourself, right? Let the king cake beignets be finished. So you wanna go ahead on and dust them with the gold, AKA the yellow icing for the power, all right? Then you wanna make it rain with the green icing for the faith, Then you want to go ahead on and make a thunderstorm with the purple icing for the justice. Now you know what all of these Mardi Gras colors represent. I want you to go ahead on and make these. Recipe link is down below. That's how you make the king cake beignets regular and the king cake beignets with a twist. Drop a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, do all that good stuff for your mans, baby. And I'll see you on the next recipe video.